While the playoff field shrinks, the footprint expands. We go through this and more on this week's episode of the IndyBall Report podcast. Back for episode number 288 of the IndyBall Report podcast. We have expansion, we have playoffs, we have all the sex appeal that one would expect. Isn't that right, Ryan?
I don't know what you would expect, frankly, but we got it, baby. Tell you that much.
Like, I think we're going to have a really solid show here. I think we're going to have a show that really rebounds from having a weird week last week where we talked expansion so much with such a poor transition. We had to chop it up into 2 episodes. So I think we're going to do a much better job this week.
Yeah, maybe. Or we won't.
And I think that's sexy.
Not my problem. Frankly, this person doesn't edit it. This feels like a Nick problem.
I hate it here.
Good. And the hell you've designed, my friend.
Well, that's good. So let's lead into this Frontier League expansion, shall we?
Yeah.
So we knew Pearl was getting a team. We knew that was getting announced on Monday. And the lucky winners, the Frontier League, which I think we briefly discussed in the bonus episode, which is part of the main thing. We're going to skip over that whole stupid continuity thing right now, just to talk about how we mentioned the Frontier League briefly and said it's very weird because it's way out of the footprint. Even at Charleston, Staten Island, it doesn't really help the footprint at all because they're still way out on an island by themselves. And we've seen how that ends in the past, namely by one team being extremely isolated, making it a bitch to travel to there, and everybody complaining because nobody's happy with the situation. Right. Considering that Pearl is now about 500 miles away from the closest team, Gateway in Evansville, it's going to kind of be a real shit show as far as travel goes. But if you look at the Observer quote, link in the show notes, of course, there's a whole article about the expansion, goes to the team names, which we'll get to in a bit. We'll have the fun conversation at the end. It's Grits, Mud Monsters, or Soul Shakers. If you vote Soul Shakers, get out. We're not even going to consider you.
The Soul is not a bad name, by the way, but that's already taken by an AFL team, which may or may not still exist. So, Pearl, buddy, what the hell? I mean, What the hell? Does every, what is it? It's like, those videos are like the male urge to throw a big rock into a body of water or whatever. It's like the Indie League urge to put a team on a different freaking continent. Like, it is Sugarland and Atlantic League. It is Cleburne and the American Association. Though I do know that expansion did happen. It retracted around them rather than expanding randomly. So I will give it that. The Oakland YOLO adventure that we're currently watching.
Cuban national team for Can-Am.
And was it, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago, where we had a full conversation about concern for the health of the Frontier League based on just difficulties with footprint, difficulties with organizations, too many organizations, too many unqualified organizations, too many messy organizations, too many organizations that are currently failing. And they're like, you know what we need? We need a failed minor league location that is nowhere near the footprint.
That's owned by a guy that owns another team, by the way.
Oh, and not well.
Yeah, by the way, it's Joseph. I should just point out, Joseph Ang is the guy that's owning this team. He's also the owner of the Railcats, which you may have caught on Twitter at IndyPod. There you go. There goes Gary's baseball ops department budget.
Joseph, no dessert unless you finish dinner, my guy. Fix the first team, then you get a second team.
No, he went ahead. He saw the first. He was like,
could the Atlantic League learn anything from this? Could the Atlantic League learn anything from a team? Could they teach something to the Frontier League, maybe, of you have one team to have another, and you weren't really running the first team well, and then went bankrupt? No, I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'm sure Frontier League could learn from itself from the shenanigans taking place in New Jersey the past 2 years.
Right. Look, I'm sure I'm sure any ownership group in the Atlantic League that owned one team that was sketchy as hell
annoyed.
and then put another team in the same ballpark the following year before then liquidating staff left and right would never jump to another league. And I'm sure another league would never accept them after seeing that colossal failure.
Surprisingly political move from the Frontier League, like a real political statement to come out in support of legalizing marijuana, to get stoned as all hell and then make a decision like expansion to Pearl, Mississippi.
Especially when it's not illegal in Pearl, Mississippi.
What are we talking about? Like, it's like,
which
hey, Ryan, don't you encourage expansion to Louisiana, which is very similar? Yes, but to compare the economic situation of Louisiana to Mississippi is crazy. Like, there's so many reasons why Pearl is not succeeding. And by the way, I am not going to sit here and dunk on Pearl. I don't want to do that. Mainly because Pearl got screwed by Diamond Baseball Holdings. Because Diamond Baseball Holdings saw an opportunity, I bet we could get the Braves a nice new team. The Braves would be happy with it. We could get someone to build a new stadium. We could profit like crazy. So they grabbed a cheap organization in Pearl, made sure that they never made the stadium upgrades needed, and made ridiculous demands of the taxpayers, bailed the first chance they got, and went to a town where, they could have a brand new stadium built for them and make a profit just like that. So Diamond Baseball Holdings can die in a ditch. And to this day, I mean, there's a few things I'm going to go to jail for. Absolutely knocking the lights out of one of the two idiots who runs that company is up there. It's just, so Pearl, it ain't on you. Pearl's in a bad spot. Pearl's a tough economy. Pearl is an indie ball market. I'll go as far as to say that. We joke sometimes about Gary, but Gary's an indie ball market. What the hell else are we doing if we're indie ball? Figure it out. Because seriously, the nice thing about indie ball, and we've talked about this a million times, is that it can be it is not held to the standard of whatever MLB team owns them. They are not held to whatever stupid contracts, like how every MILB team had to be the oat milkers, whatever the hell that was this year, because MILB assigned some deal like sellouts and then you had to run the promo. They can do what they want. And we saw Gary sell out nicely on Union Night, which we joked about on the pod.
Yeah.
But with that, that is why indie ball is different. You know who you owe something to in indie ball. It's not some affiliate, the team you're affiliated to. It's not anybody except the town and the people of that town. So if you are a struggling location like Pearl, Mississippi or Gary, Indiana, indie ball is right for you.
Do you owe it to your interns to treat them like people?
That's Chicago's problem. And those interns we will interview when they get released from the dungeon. I've told you this.
Any dogs interns, please reach out. I want an update.
Damn it. I put myself in a tight spot here. I've talked myself into a spot because one, I very much want to look at the Frontier thing and be like, this is a stupid expansion idea. This is a bad idea. It's not the city to go to. It's not the expansion location you want. What are you doing? However, I don't want to discourage indie ball teams from going to towns like Pearl, Mississippi, because that is where they should go. There's opportunity there. That is why I still believe in the Gastonia idea, because Gastonia is a difficult town economically and socioeconomically. However, there's great opportunity there because you can connect in a way that is unique and that speaks specifically to the value you put in that community and the people of that community, and they feel that. Because at the end of the day, you don't put Phillies or Braves or Mariners on your chest. You put Gastonia or Pearl or whatever it is, and that's unique and that's special. That said, Pearl, Mississippi is a good location. It's a good location for the American Association. The Frontier League doesn't know their ass from a hole in the ground. And they have no business going to Pearl, Mississippi, because they're going to mishandle it, just like they mishandled Brockton, just like they've mishandled Patterson, just like they've mishandled any number of these fine locations that they've decided to, instead of treating properly, they've decided to open like a toilet lid and shit into. Sorry, I got off my chest. I feel better now.
So before I went on his tangent, I was going to say there's an Observer article that has the team names and stuff in it, but it also mentions that the league is targeting further southern expansion in the next 2 to 3 years, which I think kind of. Ryan can't hear me.
No, I got you. I'm gonna say tag me in here because this is the conversation I am locked and loaded for. You thought I was ready for the Pearl one, buddy.
So yeah, and there's already some speculation because we're getting an 18th team on Tuesday. By the way, too, we're getting an additional team.
Which
speculation has Alabama or one of the other indie ball markets they're jumping ship, but. And I will toss this out here, and we'll get to the Southern conversation, and then we'll get to the thing I'm tossing out. But I speculate instead of doing, because they're going to a 4-division setup this year, so you're going to have 2 4 teams, 2 5 teams. I'm speculating here that makes a way more sense. They add an 18th market in a place that doesn't have an indie ball team at the moment. Then they bring in Charleston, Staten Island. They're at their 20 number they want. Staten Island fits in the East. Charleston can fit in the West. You audible things around a little bit, have the new Southern one, boom, done.
However,
yes,
we'll need to discuss the New England knockouts shortly. But I'll back burner that for a moment because I think you're right. The core idea is correct. The ownership behind Sussex and New Jersey is rumored to be a big pushing force in the 20-team expansion, which does not seem to be the best judgment base for any decisions for the league, but we'll deal with that later. My main thing, I got so many here. This is such a fraught conversation. I love it.
Ryan's giddy right now.
I am.
Like a schoolgirl.
So one, for everybody who got my messages saying I'm a moron for reporting as early as last year, Staten Island was looking to move.
Crazy like a fox.
Smile at me because I'm right. Staten Island's been obviously looking to move. I'm so bothered by that. That really drove me nuts. Was like, because there's certain things where it's like, hey, like my sources are saying otherwise. That's fine. I can be wrong. I'm wrong quite a bit. But when it's like every indication is this, and the team would not state that they're trying to stay, obviously they're moving. What are we talking about here? Everyone's trying to get out of the Atlantic League. It's expensive. Not everyone, but the teams that suck. The Charleston thing has always been obvious because Andy Shea has openly said, at least to me, that he's trying to get out of the Atlantic League. He's been saying that for years. So, yeah, I mean, he literally thought about starting his own league at one point, which, talk about a bullet dodged.
The bullet dodged because there's a shooting at his ballpark.
Oh, right. That did happen. A mass shooting they tried to cover up. Anyway, not cover up, sweep under the rug. We'll call it that. Oh, the police really didn't make a big deal of it, and the news didn't either. The people who have contracts with him, crazy. Anyway. To the bigger point, the rumor, and here's why I'm struggling I haven't put this part out. I tweeted out because I've had substantial sourcing on the Staten Island and the Charleston fact, right? And that's been over the last 2 months. I've been getting that. It's funny because that article you sent me, obviously, I'm the only one who's put that out there publicly, so they obviously got it from me. But that's fine. But the reason I didn't put more out, this second part, is because I like getting multiple sources on things. I have 2 sources on this information. One of them is from, we'll call source A within the league circle. Another has it from source A as well as source B, but I'm not comfortable calling them 2 independent sources. So I'm not putting this out there as this is happening. I don't even want to put it out there on Twitter because then people will be like, oh, this must be happening. Even if I preface it with, I'm not 100%. I just know how people are.
Get your Ron Paul gifts out, people.
What I'm hearing is the expansion will be Pearl, Charleston, Staten Island, and then possibly Kingston, Tennessee, or one of the other Tennessee markets. Tennessee, I don't know about Kingston. I don't know if that makes 100% sense, but Pearl makes no sense. So what do I know? That is what apparently will be the 20-team expansion. What I'm hearing from Brockton is while they seem to be contracted to remain in the league next year, seemingly has no infrastructure for it and no interest in it. Now, that's not at an ownership level. I think ownership-wise, I think, yes, they're in on it because they seem to be getting some other benefit, which is a different report I'm working on. It's like pulling teeth. I don't understand what ownership in New England is getting from this mess, but they're
Are
getting
they also the same ownership group as Windy City, though?
Yes. So something is coming back to them because they're not making money in Windy City, sure as hell. They're not making money in Brockton, obviously. I cannot figure out what the organization is, what that ownership is getting from these organizations. I'm thoroughly confused, and no one can give me an answer on that one. And it's frustrating because I've actually been working on that for about 6 or 7 weeks now. But someday maybe that'll be a report. I have no freaking clue, but that's a disaster. But it seems like talking to staff there, none of them intend to work Atlantic League games next year, and some of them have been told by people within that front office that they will not be doing that next year. Some of them have been told they will be. So there's obviously a lot of issues within that. So either somebody is being told that they are not having to do 2 teams next year, and that's not true, or they're being told the truth, there won't be 2, and someone else is being lied to at the manager level. That is for them to figure out. But there's issues in Brockton. There are still issues in New Jersey, by the way. And yet we're expanding in some other markets. So that is it. Sorry, it's all off my chest. I've had a very Frontier League heavy week in a way I did not expect because I was pretty deep in the American Association expansion rabbit hole thinking that's where we were going because I'm a clown. So I've been doing a lot of that lately. From what I've been hearing in New England, maybe it makes sense they'd expand, but that's just because New England would contract. I don't know. I'm lost. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
It depends very much on what the power brokers in that league want. The problem is the power brokers in that league are the most incompetent bastards that run it.
That's unique, isn't it? That is so.
Yes and no. If they have the money to fund that many teams and eat that kind of loss, then go for it.
Sure, but if we're talking about, all right, so in each league there are power brokers making decisions, correct? Like that's something I think we've both seen.
Yeah.
Okay, but so the Atlantic League is functionally out of Long Island, so it's Long Island ownership. Plus whoever happens to be friends with Long Island ownership at any given time, it seems to fluctuate.
Yeah.
In the American Association, it seems to be, it's Josh. Sure, that's fine. Cool. Yeah. It should be him. However, it also seems to be Chicago. Seems to be pulling a lot of the strings.
Well, because their ownership, we call them.
Exactly.
They have a lot of connections through, AEG?
Yes.
Well, so that helps them a lot.
And then a couple others, it remains a little unclear because it seems like, depending on the issue, certain organizations seem to have undue influence. Sometimes it feels like Milwaukee has a lot of pull. Sometimes it feels like Kansas City has a lot of pull. Sometimes it feels like King County of all teams has a lot of pull. I don't know what that
Here's my theory on all 3 of those, though. Mm-hmm. Milwaukee has that whole ballpark commons area, which is a model they want to follow. So them making it successful and making it work helps the testament, and they want them to go to these other markets and pitch
really good point.
Kansas City has the Negro League sponsorship, which got them a lot of goodwill and a lot of good press, and it's historically an important market, plus the fact that they're right next door to a major metropolitan market also helps bring in some cash and currency. And the better the Monarchs do, the better press they get because they get to drag the Negro League Museum into everything, which gives them immediate credibility or at least halts any sort of major criticism towards them.
Right, which could be coming next year, by the way. That's the early. I think this is sunrise for Monarchs criticism.
And then the third one being King County. They're one of their few teams that they got over from affiliated ball. I think only team they got over from affiliated ball, actually, come to think of it. They're seen as a little bit different. You want to lure them in and make them go to bat for these other markets that lost an affiliated team, be able to go, look, it's better on this side of the fence, or at least it's the same thing. You want to come in, all that crap there. So if you give them a little bit bigger piece of the pie, they're able to go ahead and help you sell more. In other words, all 3 of them either shield or give you publicity or help you with expansion.
Right. Dude, I think you nailed that. That's really interesting, actually. You put that together better than I could. So they have a bit of a revolving door. However, I would not endorse any of that ownership really as the deciders, like as being the people to decide.
Yeah.
Now, I will back up for a moment before we hit the Frontier League. There is, while we have hated on the Atlantic League situation because it does seem to be the owner of the Long Island Ducks, does get to call the shots.
Bolton House
I
League.
will say there is a strange benefit to that, in that because of it being so centralized, the decisions do tend to be made in the interest of the league, at least the league owner. Sometimes that is a bad thing because sometimes it is in the interest of league profit rather than league, good. However, most things do overlap league good to league profit. So for the most part, it seems to have a thing.
Yeah. See, here's the problem with the league. You kind of got to my point, which is having a czar is great until the czar starts smoking mercury.
Yes, exactly.
So,
a monarchy is good or bad. It's a toss-up.
A Kansas City monarchy, perhaps.
Moving on, though, to we'll skip to the Pioneer real quick. Pioneer League tends to have a weird thing of, I do think I can't figure out the league balance, but it seems to be overly lying upon the league office. Like they're too far to the league office.
Because they're all like reliant on one like main structure, but they're also quasi autonomous, right? Like everybody else, you recognize you're part of the league and whatnot, but you can go ahead and kind of call your own shot because let's be honest, you're probably in somebody else's footprint too, or you're a market of interest to somebody else. So you can kind of play that game. With the Pioneer League, you need to be in the Pioneer League, right? Like Missoula's not able to go to the American Association. They're there. That's their only chance. But at the same point in time, if you're the Pioneer League, you're also like, yeah, but I can't really control what they do when they're all like 400 miles apart from each other and could just as easily be like, screw this, I'm going to college ball.
Well, hold on, because I'll back you there. I'll back you up on that one because I guess, or not necessarily back you up, I will make you back up, I guess is what I mean to say. Because I found the opposite just from the sheer number of people who have said they did not want, from different organizations who said they did not want this California expansion. I'm like, then how did this happen? Like, I'm trying to count votes. Like, who decided this? You know what I mean?
I mean, my counter to that would be you really still want to be professional baseball because that's going to play better in these towns, which means you still need to be in the Pioneer League because, again, where the hell else are you going to go? Which means if the league office deems this an important step to take, is get in line or get out. And if you don't really want to get out, you're just using that as your bluff. It's like, shit, what are we going to do now? Although I wouldn't be, and this is purely conspiratorial at this point, but I wouldn't be stunned if the person signing their alimony checks had something to say about Oakland getting in there.
An interesting point. However, I do think that money's drying up.
I thought they just re-upped that money.
I think they re-up some things. I'm not sure the money re-up. Certainly not in the same way. That seems to be an indication. It's hard to find details.
I gotta look in on that.
Yeah, we'll look into it. But to the point, because that's not even the main discussion here, but it's just identifying decision makers in these leagues. The Frontier League is unique because of the number of decision makers and, frankly, how wrong the decision makers are for the league. Like, I almost feel like every decision maker in this league and everybody wielding the most power in this league is somebody who is legitimately bad at their job. There is a difference. Like, I can identify the difference. I don't know the cause of it all the time. And that's what's confusing from the outside looking in, and the limited, like the tea leaves we read. All this is just say, from what I hear, and I assume you're hearing similar, right?
Yeah.
There's a power struggle between the sort of, call it the Can-Am, but really it's more the East and the West, right?
Yeah, it's always been that dynamic there.
And that's why rumored to be, this might have been a flex by the West to get New England, where Windy City's owner now has that team, because that spreads the votes that they have and doesn't let them get like outnumbered. I've been hearing that Dorso seems to be the 20 team pusher. Not everyone's on board with that, though. Everybody seems to be on board with fixing the footprint. I think the Pioneer League needs to do some reflecting on who they are. They need to figure out if California is serious. Are they doing more westward expansion? And if so, how can they fix their schedule and make this feasible? The Frontier League needs to decide, what are they doing, period? Like,
Well, they got to start at the power struggle. Honestly, Steve Towser has the most difficult job of them all because he's fighting a power struggle right now, and like he's been there longer than most of these guys have been, but he hasn't been in the big seat for all that long. So he's going to put out multiple fires all at the same time.
Yeah,
and the problem is, two of the East Coast teams or more Eastern teams do a lot for your attendance line. Like, even if they're embellishing it, you still know New York and Quebec are drawing a lot, so they're going to have a say at the table no matter what. Dorso has two teams, so he could take his ball and go home. Ottawa is what Ottawa is. I imagine they're more of a don't rock the boat because, I mean, let's be real for a minute. They're not in a position to be doing that. I imagine Three Rivers votes in line with Quebec, probably, because their interests are more closely aligned.
I think Quebec would have beaten the Atlantic League.
Yeah.
They've bounced to multiple indie leagues and not missed a beat. And maybe the organization would say that, by the way.
I think it would take them a year or two just for building it up.
Competition-wise, but I don't think their business would skip a beat.
Oh, no. Their business, I think it would improve.
Yeah.
It would improve. I mean, just imagine. The time to do it, though, would have been right around like 08, 09, I'm thinking. Just because you could have gotten a lot. I know, like, business-wise, not great recession, but you would have gotten all the runoff expos.
Well, here's my thing. I think if you're looking at what is the big hit, it's the buy-in option. So I think actually there's been a few times, and there will continue to be a few times, where I think this could even be one where you'd be smart to do it, because the Atlantic League finds themselves in a weird position where they need a team. They keep doing these one-off solutions, right? They screwed Frederick. Who knows if Frederick actually wants to come back?
I don't think so.
They need to figure. Yeah, they need to keep figuring some things out here. Whether they're losing, it sounds like two teams, but if I'm wrong at all, they're only losing one, which means back to odd teams. If Frederick can come back, they're in a spot. So I'm not saying they would go this year, but I'm saying that's an example of a situation where, like, if you're Quebec, like, you kind of could put the Atlantic over barrel, where not only are you fixing their situation, but you're improving them as a league. Because hell, I would take Quebec any day over about half the teams in the Atlantic League right now. Especially how top heavy the Atlantic League just became. The
only thing is, will Quebec, which will want to do things the way they want to do them, play ball with the way Frank Bolton wants to do things? Because I can see that clashing a lot.
Yeah.
And it'd be one thing if you still had like a Miles Wolf in your cabinet backing you, because at that point it's like, okay, well, you have two people that can just keep swinging and swinging and swinging because they have respect on all sides of the aisle here. So it kind of neutralizes it a bit. And, like, not to talk any crap about Michel Lapointe. I mean, like, obviously he's great at what he does, but he's also not that same kind of towering figure.
He's not. Yeah, I mean,
which is just like, you're not going to find
Frank Bolton. Yeah, it's tough.
So, like, it's hard to go to war on that.
True.
So there's that. It didn't honestly
so
New York
far away from the topic necessarily, but like I guess we're still kind of there.
Yeah, I mean, like, New York's the interesting one, to be honest, because they never really show much loyalty to any league, and there's always been that, like, they feel like an Atlantic League team. It feels like an Atlantic League stadium. It feels like an Atlantic League type of organization.
But do they have that success?
That's when it's success been a prereq.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you and I went the same way on that one.
Like, I mean, come on. Like, we'll ignoring the off the field issues with Southern Maryland here, of which we can count up, and we will continue to count up. We're keeping that fresh in people's minds, by the way. But on the field, what the hell have they done? They've been here for, 15 years now?
They still haven't won a championship. I think it's the longest championship drought in any ball, at least in the
Can't be a drought. They never won one.
Fair, I guess, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, no, of them all, like, they just can't do anything. Like, they don't even normally get above 500, dude. They don't make the playoffs often. Why did they make the playoffs 4 times in their whole franchise?
Firmly dependent on Matt Latos and Gerald Thompson, and we see what happens when that falters.
it's always pitching. Joe Gannon, like, dragged them kicking and screaming 1 year too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like putting the other lineup costs money.
Funny about that. See, almost like Southern Maryland proves my point on, like, you do need batting to win. Just to recap there, because there was a bit of a tangent in there. Mississippi is going to be going to the Frontier League. There'll be further Southern expansion in the next 2 to 3 years to that area. We're going to get an 18th team announced on Tuesday. It could be Alabama, Staten Island, and or Charleston. We don't know about that. We know it will be south of the Ohio River. And we're going to 4 divisions for next year. 2 5-team divisions and 2 14 divisions. The West, we know, will shake out like this: Washington, Lake Erie, Florence, Evansville, and then Mississippi, Gateway, Joliet, Schaumburg, Windy City. That Chicago to Mississippi trip is going to be fun. And then the East is still a question mark, but I would assume the 3 Canadian teams are together and the 3 New York, New Jersey teams will be together. I would imagine, depending on where this other expansion team goes, Tri-City could slot up or down. I would imagine if Tri-City, or if we get Staten Island in there, Staten Island would jump to be with New York, Rockland, New Jersey, Sussex. And
I figure that much.
They would go there, and then you could throw Tri-City in there if you want to keep all New York, New Jersey together, or you could bump them up to go to Canada a bunch with New England. I don't really see a world where New England's not in with the 3 Canadian teams, assuming they're here still, of course. And I would imagine Tri-City is going to take whatever gives them less travel, because I feel like they have enough of a say to be able to do that.
Right. I think they've already been complaining about that issue, so I'm sure they'll get taken care of if possible.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the deal in the Frontier League as far as expansion goes. We'll talk about this again next week when they announce the team. It could be Monday. It could be Tuesday. I heard both. I'm going to go with Tuesday, because why not?
Sure. Why not?
Actually, here's why it's going to be Tuesday, because Friday, Saturday, Sunday are all 3 possible championship game dates.
True.
You're not going to go Monday.
Earlier.
Yeah.
If they win earlier, if someone wins earlier.
Could be, but I think you're better off just planning your whole announcement out and going with it on the Tuesday.
Well, you'll be excited, man. Gotta unwrap the gift.
You gotta let it cook. But talking about that Frontier League Championship Series, we do have one of those. We have 2 games in on it. It's Washington versus Quebec, a matchup I think we've wanted for quite some time. I think we've all been waiting for this for at least 2 or 3 years now. And it has so far lived up to the billing. However, we're going to quickly go through how we got to this point. Where we last left off, Ottawa was up 1-0. Washington was up 1-0. We'll get the less dramatic of the 2 out of the way, which would be Washington just drop kicking Lake Erie, a team that some would be say reborn after their win against Gateway. They were sent back to the crypt very quickly, having not scored a run in that series. Neat little thing there. Game 2 was a 10-0 2-hit shutout by the Wild Things. Every Wild Thing batter reached base at least once. I will put it to you like this. It was a relatively uncompetitive drumming.
Yeah, that was not a very interesting series, I guess. I'll go with a simple word for that one.
It feels a lot. Just to quickly, again, I want to run through these 2 semifinals quickly so that we can talk championship baseball. But I will say this much. It feels like Lake Erie went chips in on game 1. And when that didn't work, and then Eisenbarger got banged up early, not injured, but just like hit hard early, it was all she wrote.
Yeah, there wasn't. I mean, those are the cards you got to play. I get it. I'm not like, wow, dumb strategy. Like, that's kind of how you go about it. But
yeah.
Not a lot to say. I mean, I've felt Gateway isn't the most competitive team for a playoff series the way they're built. This second year in a row, I felt that way. But I was ready to be proved wrong. But yeah, they did not prove me wrong. I felt like there wasn't enough. The pitching they have, I think, lacks the depth and profile to really like cause too many consistent issues for lineups, especially a top lineup. Like I sort of noticed that when I compared them to like how they're doing against like playoff caliber offenses, and just it started to trend backward the league average. And then at the same time, I looked at the same thing on the offensive side and was kind of doing the same. So not blindsided by this for sure. I'm still somewhat, it's always jarring to see a non-competitive playoff series, but especially
game one was competitive.
Yeah, I know it. Not, I don't mean to say not competitive, not compelling. Again, like I felt like it would never made a case that made me go, well, maybe. Lake Erie, I'm sorry. Never made a case. That's so funny. That was in my head like that. Never made a case for me that like that was a team that could threaten for the series, let alone for a championship.
Yeah, the problem for them, or at least with them, was always that they were a pitching team, and I get a little frisky around them. I don't love it. I mean, you saw, we'll get to Winnipeg in a second here, but they had a couple chances to really close out to Fargo, and they struggled. They got it done tonight, but it wasn't the slam dunk you were hoping for. You need some offense there. Whether intended to or not, Lake Erie's offense was predicated around that big hit. Whether that was going to be a double, I was going to score a guy that maybe got lucky and got walked. It didn't walk much to get too many base hits. It was always just an extra base hit. It was going to be a home run or a double mostly. They had some triples, but you never bet on that. So they were always going to bet on having that one big hit that was going to get the runner to home. Then the pitching was going to close the run. And that's going to work against like your Windy Cities, your Evansvilles, your lower tier teams, even the middle teams like say a Florence or a Schaumburg. You can get by on them. You could play 500 to slightly above 500 baseball against that, beat up on the crappy teams, and then just steal some against the good teams, especially in the Frontier League, where realistically there's one, maybe two teams in each division that are that much better than everybody else. You can get by on that for a while, but the issue you run into is when you don't get those big hits because you're going against either a team that doesn't give them up or a team that's just better than you, that's going to be a major problem, or a team that can just match you blow for blow. That's a problem.
Yeah.
The other problem is when you build around pitching for the whole year and they're all good, so you don't get rid of them all, because why would you get rid of a pitcher that's got like a 3.7 ERA in like 12 starts? That'd be stupid. The problem is when you get to like August, those innings from May, June, July start to really add up.
Right.
And then you start getting into the end of August. And now everybody's got between 15 to 20 starts on their arm. When June, they're only going about 6 innings a start, 5 innings a start even. It adds up. And now it's like, okay. And if you have guys that 1 or 2 starts that didn't work out, that turned into bullpen days, or you got really down the stretch and you wanted to get the bullpen guys working, or you had a couple bad starts because now the arms are getting tired and the bullpen had to work too much. Now when you get into the critical part of the season, when you need them, they're not quite there. So that's the main problem I always saw with Lake Erie, was that your offense isn't there to compensate for tired arms, and you don't have enough new arms in there because, hey, finding pitching is extremely difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the same about whether it applies over every indie ball playoff series. It kind of does.
I think it applies more so for teams like Lake Erie, where they are very definitively a pitching team. And that's really my critique here. It's not even like a case like, say, an Ottawa, where their pitching is stronger than their offense, but they still do have 2 or 3 guys where you're like, okay, they can still carry the weight here. You look at the Lake Erie team and you go, who is the guy here?
Yeah.
Like every other playoff team, you can point to like at least one, probably 2 guys.
Like, like if they win, it's because this guy took over, type of thing.
Yeah, where you wouldn't be surprised if you look at the box score and go, oh, 2 for 3 with a home run. And a double.
Some of it is also easier to navigate around good pitching than good hitting at times. Not always. It depends on the situation, but I think, bad hitting, sure it's only up, or good hitting, sure it's only up once every X number of at bats. but there's a lot of opportunities when it comes to like, they got some good pitching, but to kind of put that pitcher, like you have their book, you know what they are against righties, lefties, different types of batters, like to put them in a spot where they're just facing at least once or twice an inning a guy who's a bad matchup for them. That's sort of the weird, the twist on, sure, you're the pitching, you're the team that's, in the field, you're pitching right now, but you're kind of stuck in some ways because you can't freely substitute the way others can. Sure, you have more pitchers than batters, but it gives the hitting team the opportunity to respond and build a lineup or whatever the case may be. So even if you're a pitching team, you're going to be facing a team that isn't just putting out their Sunday lineup or whatever the case may be. They're putting out a lineup that's like specifically designed for your pitcher and the relievers you might bring in. We overlook just how impactful that can be in one of these series. If that made sense. I knew what I was trying to
now that you can go and game plan more for like a pitcher, particularly a starting pitcher, because you're like, okay, they're not going to have the luxury of subbing this guy out because once he's out, he's out. So you pretty much got to go to that pitcher. Hey, man, you're going to have like 6 really tough matchups here today. You're just going to have to power through it. And if it's only one guy or 2 guys in there, you can kind of work around 1 or 2 batters. But when it's like a lineup that's designed to cause this guy problems, either they match up well, lefty righty thing, or just like the type of hitter they are compared to the type of pitcher that's on the mound, it's hard to work around that kind of guy because now there's like 4 or 5 of them in the lineup. So it's not like you can just say, all right, I don't match up good against this guy. I'm going to pitch around him. If I get him, I get him, but he's not getting a pitch to hit here.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
That's you said that well compared to what I was going for there.
Yeah. But to just put a bow on like Erie here as we keep it moving, I will say though, still a really good year. Strong second series. Yeah, strong second season from Jared Lemieux. Good job by the front staff to really put together a good team, put together a solid organization. Looked good largely. Obviously, there's areas to improve upon, but this is a really good building block season for them.
And I'll do a full sort of roster autopsy either here or on my own content stuff. But I mean, just look at the roster, who's aging out, who's not. I mean, they're my early, if I had to pick playoff teams for next year, I'd put them as a favorite to make the playoffs again. And that's what you want, building every year.
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot there. And like I said, realistically, I like this team a lot better if they could have 1 or 2 other bats, right?
Yeah. And I think that would have happened. I think this team they knew they'd compete. I think they were not expecting to be this competitive. And I think that's where we start. I think if we're a year forward in the cycle, we would see them build with a little bit better depth, I think.
Yeah. Really, for me, the kind of batter that they needed was a guy almost like a Kyle Crawl, where he's not overwhelming on power. Go with me on it.
No, I feel like that's a good pull by you. Yeah,
where he's a guy that's not going to really like stand out power wise, not going to stand out average wise, but he gets on base. He's a reliable hitter where you're like, yeah, he's going to have a couple days where he's going to be like 1 for 5 or something like that. And he's going to have his streak where he probably has like a 3 or 4 game bad stretch, but you're going to reliably say, yeah, he's going to get on base once or twice every day. And that just works. You need a couple of guys that are just keep the lineup moving type of guys.
Yeah, I agree.
And they just didn't really have a lot of that.
There was, and because you need people who are there when the big dog comes up. You need people on base that either come around and score or, gets a jog around because he had a homer. Like, you got to be doing damage, got to be putting up crooked numbers.
Yeah.
You're only going to get so many opportunities to score when the other team is throwing their best pitching combinations and guys are more rested because it's the playoffs. So you have to be able to maximize every offensive opportunity. And I don't think they came with the weapons to do that this year.
Exactly. And you're not always going to get the right conditions to where that kind of just smack the hell out of the ball is going to work. You're going to get some ballparks where that's not going to work. You're going to get some days where the wind's not going to cooperate. And then you're going to get some days where it's just like the pitcher on the mound doesn't give up home runs.
Yeah.
You can kill him by like getting 10 base hits off him. He's not that accurate to where if you just wait him out, he'll burn through all his pitches. but you won't give up home runs. You need a couple guys that can take advantage of that. They aren't just going to hit a bunch of long fly balls.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you there.
So moving on to Quebec, game 1, they kind of gave away. Not kind of bad. They did give that one away.
What is with them in game 1s?
I think like they need a challenge, so they're just like, we're going to put ourselves on the brink.
Wouldn't it be fun if
they're just like, it's too easy. We're playing the game on easy mode.
I'm bored.
But yes, then game 2 comes around, and both of the stars were just shitty. No real way about that. They did not play well. I believe 5 runs a clip to each of them. Good for them. Quebec rides a big 5th and 6th innings to a win. They survived a little bit of a scare from a Michael Furman 3-run shot. They still won, I believe, 11-6, if I'm not mistaken. 10-6, possibly. Yeah. 10-6, yeah, there it is. And there's nothing too much to note there. Quebec responded the way we expected them to at home. I don't think anyone with a brain thought this was going to be a sweep. All there is to really say about game 2, I mean, perhaps of note and concern, Bradwell had a bad start, but
happened.
Yeah.
Class.
Exactly. Then we get to game 3, and this is a lot more competitive game. This is a fun game.
Yeah, this was a good one to watch. I was kind of stuck to this one. I ignored some responsibilities.
Back and forth battle here. Ottawa has a big 5th inning. They shoot up to a lead. Quebec then just kind of methodically starts chipping away until eventually they take an 8-6 lead, and you start thinking like, okay, here we go. I believe at one point they left the bases loaded towards the end there. And so it got kind of sketchy. Ottawa starts coming back. They're showing some life. And Quebec, you think, okay, they got them dead to rights. And then they got a runner on second. There comes a runner on third. Comes a runner scoring on a wild pitch. There's now a different runner on second. And you're like, oh God, is it going to happen?
Right.
Because now you got O'Donnell up, one of the few guys on Ottawa's lineup that was genuinely scary this series. Punch out to end it.
Yep, that'll work.
They know how to do drama up in La Provence.
Well said.
But a really strong series. Honestly, Ottawa impressed me a lot more than Quebec did this series, solely based off of I came in expecting Quebec to really kind of handle them. Not necessarily sweep, because I didn't see Ottawa, losing 2 in a row.
Okay.
But I didn't really think it'd be competitive. I assumed like Ottawa would win one close one, which they did. Quebec would then answer with a close one, which I suppose they did, and then they blow them out in another one. Now, that being said, I thought it'd be close blowout. Not close kind of blowout, would we call it that?
Not really into the specifics.
Yeah. But
this, you and I kind of had the same vibe on where the series would likely go.
Yeah. And just felt like Ottawa made them sweat a lot more than I was expecting from them.
I guess so. I mean, Ottawa had played Quebec tough throughout the year. That's probably what kind of colored my thought process that this could be pretty tight. But yeah, I mean, just feels like Quebec finding a way is inevitable, doesn't it?
It's just a matter they've been there so often now.
Right. They seem unfazed.
Yeah, where they're just like, we know it's expected of us.
Right. And it's like a very next man up. Yeah, exactly. I was going to say it's a very next man up mentality, where even if there's a bad start or a tough few innings, the next guy out of the pen feels like he's got under control, which is interesting. And not many teams are like that, which is, I'm not going to sit here and just glaze Quebec, but it is kind of fascinating to see the way they continuously tend to do this. And I'm like, oh, all right, I guess we're having this conversation again.
You see, for me, and something I said in a tweet, which is like, this is a team where it feels like everybody wants the opportunity to put the guy away.
Oh, interesting point. Yeah, I feel that.
It feels like they're all want that shot, where I'm not going to say these guys, not every professional athlete's built like that, but there are certain guys that you could just kind of tell by the way they come in, the way they pitch, the way they work their craft, that they want it. Like, there's more than want. It's that they need to be the guy that's going to put the other team away. I think I said something to the extent of they all want the opportunity to slit their opponent's throat, and they'll stab each other to do it.
Yeah.
Like,
I can see where you're coming from there. For sure.
But yeah, they all want that opportunity where it's just like, sure, Bradwell had a bad start, but like, I don't really care who's coming out of the bullpen. I'm very confident that they're going to go out, they're going to pitch their inning, maybe inning and a half, and they're going to do their job.
Yeah.
Ramirez had a bad, okay. Carr is going to come in, he's going to throw 2 shutty.
And it also does tend to feel like they're prepared for the situation they're coming into, whether it's a strange out of the blue one or not, which is sort of, again, unique to Quebec versus other teams where it seems a little more. Other teams, it almost feels like they just fell into situations constantly.
Yeah, I think the difference is, if we really want to get down to it, as the many things we already said, is Scalabrine manages the postseason like the postseason. Everybody else manages it like it's another high stakes game.
Maybe. I don't know if that's 100% true. I don't think, and more in the way that I don't think, I mean, I've seen enough aggressive managing in big games from other managers to feel like that is not, he's not some sort of full outlier. I just think I don't think it's the way he's managing. I think Pat Scalabrine has a way of building a roster over the course of the year that is built for the way he intends to manage in a playoff series, which is several chess moves beyond what I think other teams are doing, right? Many other teams are building rosters to make the playoffs and then we'll go from there. And they're managing once they're in the playoffs with what they have. I genuinely, just looking back at like the moves and how they come together for Quebec, because this year I haven't paid attention more to it, and I'm going to do a deep dive at some point here, but it has felt far more like from the start of the offseason until now, the roster being built is reflective of Scalabrine's preferred management style, but also of what he expects to need to do during a playoff run, specific, like not just like trying to make us, but like right now, like a playoff series. And I think that's something that he can afford to do because his team is sort of so far out and above everyone else that he can be finicky with that kind of thing. But I also think they are that far out and above everyone else because of it. So I think it's the sort of self-perpetuating cycle that we have going on now in Quebec. Sorry, I've been in a rabbit hole on that one.
Frankly, I feel like they've almost gotten to the point where they're just like, punt like the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season. It doesn't matter. We'll kick it on afterwards. Spend the first month getting everything in order.
Well, yeah, I think it speaks to they know what they're building toward, and they're confident that they have the time to achieve that. Just it's unreal. Because this is the second straight year where after like not deep in the year, but like at some point.
Yeah, it was like a good 4 or 5 weeks.
Like, we were kind of like, hey,
what's going on?
Time to go. And they're like, yeah, we know. And just went.
Yeah, they're just like, oh, they put ahead. They look at the leaderboard like, oh, it's only Tri-City, New York. That's in first right now.
Well,
that's not a concern.
We'll kill them. All right. Guess so. Thanks for coming out.
Last year, it's like, New Jersey's there. This will be a good one. This is a throwback to when we used to kick their brains in the past 2 leagues we were in.
It did feel like that. Oh my God.
So it was like,
you put words to it. Yeah. You want to run this back? Oh, you've never seen it? What a treat we have for you today. It's literally premeditated murder at this point.
Washington's about to learn that. And in game 1, game 1 was close, even though it was it didn't look as close as it was, but it was 5-2 final.
Yeah.
But Quebec in the 9th stranded 2 with a man at the plate. So it could have very easily, instead of being a punch out to end it, been a 3-run shot to tie it. So overall, though, Sandberg got hit a bit. Washington scored 1 run in 5 straight innings, which is going to kill you. Even if there's no big inning, letting him up one at a time. The slow trickle will kill you all the same. Quebec didn't have much of an answer. Really nice start from Kobe Foster, though. Although the walks are still a concern for me with Washington. That's the biggest thing I've seen from them so far. The offense hits. The pitching is pretty solid. It's just they have these tendencies to have games where you just walk like 10 batters. And it's like, that's going to bite you. You give 10 free base hits, basically. Pack it on with the other hits. If they get like, I don't know, 10 hits on you, 20 base runners is going to bite you.
Yeah, I agree. That's a hard game to survive. Between so many places to put them.
Yeah.
It's kind of
spread them out.
Yeah.
I mean, you're averaging about 2 base runners an inning. Sooner or later, it's going to bite you.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't have a ton else to say on that one because, like, so far, weirdly enough, I've been more, even while Washington was winning, I still felt like Quebec was more dangerous than when Quebec is winning and Washington isn't, trying to make something happen. So I don't know. Again, don't know what that means, but I just feel like maybe it's biased, but just watching a game, I'm like, oh God, Quebec's offense, man.
That's the like, here's the thing with Quebec is that, and I said a bit in the preview video I put out, which is there's no real one guy in there you have to be worried about where you circle him coming up and you're like, this one's the one that's going to kill us. Although I suppose you can make an argument for Gideon.
Yeah, I'm sure Washington would.
Yeah, and then last series, Crawl really was pounding Ottawa. Hell, game 2, he had more offense against Ottawa than Lake Erie had against Washington. Neat little fact for you. But outside of those two guys, really, there's no one in that lineup where you're like, oh, this one's going to kill us. But there's like 6 guys there where you're like, no, he's definitely good for a base hit. He's good for a double. No, you can't let him get on. He had 40 bags last year. So, like, if he gets on first, it's basically a double. Like, there's so many of the guys like that where you're just like, shit, you just walked the dude that's got 39 stolen bases on the year. That's not good. No, that guy was a 2020 guy, too. You can't do that. So, it's the depth that kills you. And I think that's the hard part. Like, Washington, like, top-level talent for top-level talent goes blow for blow. The problem is the depth isn't always there. And Quebec, by default, having won the past 2 years and the track record they've had, having really like one bad season the past 10 years, has earned enough, I suppose, respect or enough benefit of doubt to say it's them until proven otherwise. So that's really where the hang-up gets to. Where like Washington's in trouble. You're like, 2-time defending champion here. Got you on the ropes. What are you going to do? Versus, all right, well, Quebec's in a tough spot again, but like they were in a tough spot against Ottawa like 4 different times in the last 3 years. They were in a tough spot against New Jersey a couple times last year. They were in a tough spot against Evansville pretty much every game last year. So, like, add another one to the list.
I don't know what's on that. It was pretty thorough pulling together of that whole situation.
Did you tell I'm a Quebec fanboy?
I mean, it's hard.
It's hard not to be.
Fans of good indie ball, and like that's off the field and on the field, and they do both well. So like, what I try not to overly harp on it, but that's
over the past
maybe we should because maybe it'll promote people doing what they do.
Because over the past 2 weeks, we've hammered this, where it's just like it's hard to judge teams independent of the actions that we know they do away from the field.
Yeah, agreed.
It's just like once you have the context, it's hard to not view it in it. So
I mean, yeah. I don't want to sound like I'm sort of just oversimplifying and agreeing with you, but yeah, any conversation, especially among the Frontier League teams, is almost weighed down by what we see out of Quebec because they're such a blatantly more successful organization than the others.
On that note, why don't we go to game 2 here, where realistically, if you take out the second inning, it's a much different ball game. But that's like saying if we just took out the worst inning for us,
right?
How many games would we have lost this year? But yes, Quebec struck for 7 in the second inning, and then from there, Washington started to kind of look decent towards the end. But when you give 11 runs in the first 3 innings, you kind of dig yourself a hole you're not going to get out of.
Yeah, that was sort of a. I was watching that closely because I was like, "Hey, man, like this is a big deal. This could be it. This could be Quebec, like really getting down into an 0-2 and just." I mean, they tore them up, man. That was. I mean, it wasn't the best pitching that Washington has to offer, but I mean, Gerald Frigio and Malik Barrington are not slouches. I mean,
they're still very solid pitchers. Yeah. I mean, they're the 3 and they're 4 starter for most of the year. So
I'm not saying it was completely shocking, but it was something like, oh, wow, that happened. Like if that difference makes any sense. But I'm not saying, oh, I could never have anticipated something like this happening to them. I mean,
still unexpected.
Back in the playoffs, it's chaos, Bobby. But it is very interesting to see, like, oh, the difference is that clear. Okay. Like they were able to hop on this. Like if you're not bringing your top line pitcher with his top line stuff, like, oh, they'll make you pay.
Which is why it was kind of surprised me to see Zach Kirby throw an inning in that game.
Yeah, right. I guess maybe you just need to work. I mean, he does have the day off after.
That's the thing. I assumed the day off there. Plus, he was the game 2 starter, so we pitched, what would that be, Saturday, so we still had off Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. So you throw the 1 inning on Wednesday, you're
probably
off.
Like it's his bullpen day, and then you're not using a high leverage bullpen guy. Exactly. I don't mind that call.
Yeah, and if you say, okay, we used a few too many guys already between today and yesterday, and we don't know what we're getting into when we go to Quebec, I see how you justify this. He's definitely got to be the game 3 starter, though, right? Or do you hold him back for possible game 4?
I was thinking game 4.
Okay.
I think he could do game 3, very likely. That would fit pretty nicely into that.
Because you only get one more Kirby start.
Yes, and either way, you only get one more. So I think hold it for 4. He could be a bailout option in 3 if you really need it. But that way, I like that. No. I'm taking that all the way back.
Yeah,
I think Kirby in his current role is a good move because then you have the option of he is either your survival guy in game 4
or your closeout guy,
or he's your closeout guy. I think that's a great move.
So then where do you put Kobe Foster in this then? Do you hold him back because then he's your game 5, or do you dive him in your pocket because he's been a starter all year? He's a starter. You pull him
he's in the your game 5. He's your game 5.
Yeah. Okay, so you're willing to roll the dice with him, with dying with him in your pocket.
I mean, you threw him in game 1. It's not like he's unused. I think he's not ready to go in game 3. You have a game 4 ready. You could argue if it's like a 1-run game and you're down going to 7th, maybe you haven't. Like I have him ready, but I don't.
I mean, at this point in the year, everybody's ready. All hands on deck. The only way a guy's not ready is if you threw a lot the day before.
Agreed. I think if you went over 30 pitches the day before, you're out. But I think if you didn't, you're available. And I think that's probably what they're doing. I would handle it that way. That's something that I kind of hyper focus on and I like is talking about pitcher availability. And as long as people are feeling good, I mean, that would be my pitcher strategy on that one. I go Foster ready for game 5, but available in game 4. Go Kirby in game 4. And then game 3, you have sort of an open board of options.
I agree that's the smart play. And you figure out whatever you're going to do for game 3.
Mm-hmm.
But part of me is like, you roll Kirby in game 3, and then you go for the closeout with Foster in game 4. I understand that puts you in a real tight spot if you split those two, and then you go to a game 5. But the question you have to ask yourself is, if we fall down 2-1 to Quebec with 2 other games in Quebec, how good do I feel, or win both of those, rather? Because that's a tall ask.
Yeah, but I just don't understand what the alternative is. Like, either way, it's a game with your back against the wall or a game with your back against the wall.
I'm just saying that if you roll out Kirby in 3, he gets the win in 3, then you go Foster in 4 to put it down. Now, I could see the argument of, say, you go Kirby in 3. If you get the win, you hold Foster for 5.
No, you go for the kill.
Yeah. Got to go for the kill.
And I think you go for the kill because I think also you anticipate the other team throwing their best in that game 4 for survival. And then it's going to be a game of leftovers in game 5. So you just work. Everyone's going to be working with whatever they have in game 5. So
I assume game 4 would then be Sandberg, then to match.
If there's a possibility of the series ending, I always recommend assuming the series will end that day.
Okay.
That tomorrow you can't be left with a bullet in the chamber saying, well, saving it for tomorrow. Like, you got shot in the head today. My God, I don't know what to tell you.
Part of the reason why I'm an advocate for Kirby in 3 is he's going to match up with Saldana. I like the matchup better. I understand matching pitchers is like, okay, but they're not going head to head. But like, kind of though. Saldana got hit around against Ottawa.
Yeah, but
and Ottawa's lineup is not nearly as good as Washington's.
You could counter the other way of like, okay, so we should anticipate having a little more wiggle room.
I see that, but like again, if we're saying in playoffs you're going for the kill, this is your shot to go for the kill.
I think really the only situation that you alter your strategy in is a game that could eliminate you or eliminate someone else. I think you just keep it rolling the way it's going, and then you can make a call in that game 4, game 5 situation.
And see, the weird thing is for me, the alternate is if it's tied with this possibility of putting you or them on the brink, or if your ass is against the wall. If you know you have a little bit of room, I understand like you don't want to give a team hope or life, but like, man, to have the emergency cord and to prevent yourself from getting into that position, it means a lot. What's even dumber is that by the time this comes out, we're going to know who the game 3 starter was.
I know. We're over obsessing on this. I think in the end, it's mostly based on who is properly rested, and it's going to be based on what the situation of each game is. I really think I get what you're saying. I think, though, a lot of it comes down to let's stop acting like they don't have 2 actually quite good bullpens. That's the other problem here. Like, they know that it's the best investment of time and energy to figure out what they should do with their starters, when either way, it could be a 1-inning outing if they get clipped. And you could see them again the next day anyway.
I'm curious to see how it works out, though. Because there's a lot of different ways it can go.
Yeah, I feel that.
The real question is, if you were to go, who's that other guy, though? Who's the third starter that you turn to? Because obviously,
Are we talking game 3 or game 5?
I mean, either way, it doesn't matter. You're going to need that other guy. Because Kirby and Foster only go for 2 games. Like Quebec, we know who their 3 are. It's always going to be Sandberg to Bradwell to Saldana. It'll always be those 3. Washington, like, we have yet to see Kirby, so he's going to go either 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
Foster will then presumably go either 4 or 5. So then, depending on how that shakes out, you need one other guy, and you just use Friago and Barrington. Who have been the next 2 up. So, like, what's the plan?
I mean, it could be Frasier, right?
Well, he just went.
Yeah, just went. So, hold on. Got it.
And Barrington came in relief. So, I don't know how many pitches he threw, but I got to imagine you don't want him going back-to-back games like that, especially after he just got popped. Feels like every trick's out of the bag at that point.
Think you might have to go Barrington. Moss.
Back to back?
Oh, back to back. I mean, how many pitches did he throw?
I'm looking that up right now. Pitching, Wild Things. He threw 55.
All right, he's done. He could do bullpen day.
I don't know, man. Your best or one of your better bullpen guys, Munoz, threw 38.
Hmm.
Kirby only threw 8 pitches, so he's definitely able to go.
Yeah, they might just go Kirby then, if that's how big the difference is.
Yeah, Nail threw 7. McDonald.
All of this just land on that is infuriating. I'm sorry to everybody listening.
Yeah, because Friago can't even go either. He threw 53.
God, that's so many pitches for so few outs.
Yeah, in case you're wondering, for 4 outs, he threw 53. For Barrington, he got 5 outs for 55.
I think Kobe Foster's locked in as your game 4 guy.
Okay, so you think you got to go Kirby Foster?
I guess so. Ugh. Yeah, I gotta feel good about that one compared to every other option.
Right. Then it comes down to Friago if you go to game 5. Or do you start Barrington and hope that start goes better? Because Friago at least has a little bit of bullpen work experience between last year and playoffs this year.
Honestly, it's whoever just seems fresh and didn't suck last outing.
I mean, in fairness here, we want to go off of that theory. One guy let up 6 runs in an inning and a third. Another one let up 5 runs in an inning and a third. They both gave up the same amount of home runs, struck out the same amount of guys, and walked the same amount of guys.
Oh my God, here we go.
It's 6-1. Imagine if you weren't a Frontier League fan.
Yeah, a lot of people are out in this episode currently.
Oh, a lot of them just were like, so where did he say the show notes are again?
DiValerio, maybe? I was listening when he threw. He hasn't thrown a game since September 1st, but numbers are good, solid.
2 weeks in between outings, though.
I mean, has he? I don't think he has not made a relief appearance, I don't believe. But he gives up hits.
That's not what you want against this team.
Yeah, I know, but he doesn't walk guys, so it kind of comes out in the wash.
But like, you're still going against a contact team, though.
122 innings is a 3.4 ERA. I think you have to go for that. He's not striking guys out. He's giving up hits. But also, he's a 3.4 ERA. So he's
a
putting his own
contact
base.
catcher.
Yeah, which is fine. As long as he's not letting guys go deep on him, which he really isn't. It's 12 home runs, 122 innings. It's not that bad.
But this team doesn't have many home run guys. It's like Gideon, kind of Crawl, kind of Castro.
So if you think home runs are out of the game, you put a guy who goes out there who doesn't give up a lot of home runs, you can kind of just decisively take it out of the game for a while. I think that's probably what I would do.
7 guys that live and die by nickel and diming you.
I would go DiValerio and I would say, hey, dude, be ready to come out after 1 trip through the lineup. We might give you 2, but that's about it.
And you do that for game 3 or game 5?
Game 3.
Okay.
The
only reason why I say game 5 instead, and just bear with me on it, is just, again, you have a chance to prevent it from getting to that point if you go Kirby Foster in that order. And game 5 is going to be all hands on deck anyway, so who cares if you burn out the bullpen? And if you find yourself in that spot where either game 4 is going to be all hands on deck because you go home anyway, or you're like, okay, I guess it is going to be a game 5, you could tell whoever's out there, hey, dude, we need you to eat one. And save the rest.
I mean, that's it.
As opposed to if you do this in game 3, he doesn't work out. You just had a bullpen day the game before, so 2 days earlier, and now you got to do it again. That's a lot to ask your bullpen. And then that basically says game 4 has to be a good start. Dude.
Yeah, it does. That's why you have those starters.
Do you want to risk losing the championship in inning 3?
Frankly, yes, you do, because you have to bet that your pitcher is going to put out a good performance. The pitchers that you have to have good performances, you bet that they will give a good performance. Now, do you have a backup option? Yes, and then you cross the game 5 bridge when you come to it. But every game where there is the possibility of winning or losing a series, every other game has crossed that bridge when we get to it. So whatever. Like everything else out the window. If you got to double down on 2 starters to get through that thing, all right, I guess we're doing bullpen in game 5 if we do it. But like the thought process too is if you are pushing that hard, burning resources on game 4, even if you lose and get pulled into a game 5, you would hope it at least took some resources from the opponent in order to get to that point as well. So both you are coming in with half a deck, maybe. That's it. I mean, we're talking hypotheticals of hypotheticals at this point, but that is the theoretical approach to this mess. Which, by this mess, I mean playoff series.
I'll cut it here just because there's 2 other leagues to really get to. Atlantic League, you're going to wait because we know second half Storms is real once again, and then Charleston should get that last spot.
Genuinely horrified by Lancaster, but continue.
Yes. So we'll cut it here.
Genuinely looking to cause chaos in the life of any shape.
Great year for Pennsylvania baseball. Phenomenal year for Pennsylvania baseball.
Who's about it? And Canadian, frankly.
Yes. Yes.
Don't call it Canada.
What if I live in Three Rivers?
Whatever.
We'll see how this bears out in the Frontier League on several fronts. It's going to be a fun 72 hours for the Frontier League. But in any case, let's get to the American Association fairly quick before we get to the Pioneer League. They got a whole other situation going on there. Where we last left off, we were still in round one. Here's how round one went. Winnipeg knocked off Sioux Falls. Fargo knocked off Sioux City. Chicago knocked off Cleburne. We already knew King County did their thing, which I didn't realize until just in a second. King County is set to lose a game in the postseason.
Yeah, dude, they're nasty. It's a problem.
Low key, kind of killer.
Watch your lips; they'll get you.
Any major thoughts from round one?
No, not really. I mean, I don't have any major thoughts in general. I'm not that smart.
Okay. Only two things I really got to take away from that is Sioux City, man.
Oh my god. I mean, I'll talk about that if you want.
Yeah, let's go there for a second. We don't really talk about Sioux City much.
Well, you know.
But yeah, supposedly they get jobbed in what was it, game one with the umpiring, and then now they lose a couple of tight ones. I mean, like, here's the thing, like, they shouldn't have been here. I'm more disappointed in Fargo from letting it get to this point.
Oh my, yeah. I mean, talk about disappointment on several levels of Fargo, but we'll get there. Yeah.
They should have let JD Schulten start. Maybe they would have got a game in there.
Hell yeah. I mean, never know.
Here's the thing. Fargo had the home field, correct?
Yes.
Is it shitty that I thought, like, well, you're all JD out there for like game one for the attendance boost, and then like you deal with what happens next, because like you probably weren't going to win this series anyway.
Yeah, I mean, playoffs, there's anything that happens, so you do got to put your best foot forward. But
I mean, JD did have a good start against Fargo before.
I would have at least let him throw out the first pitch.
Here's the thing: like, I would have included him in
honestly. Keep him there for cleanup work, right?
That's what I was about to say. I was like, I'd leave him in the bullpen if it starts doing ass kicking. Like, hey, you want to go give us 3 innings?
It's literally, yeah, that's great. I mean, having somebody on the roster do that is huge.
Yeah, and the fact that he's probably not going to go out and embarrass himself too is all the better.
Right, and he's an actual pitcher who's built to pitch several innings at a time. That's better than a lot of teams have for a cleanup role.
Exactly. So I'll take that. But yeah, here's the problem that I have with Sioux City. It's not even Sioux City's problem necessarily. It's kind of the problem.
All right.
The problem is they're not a good enough team to contend. And I think that may be a budget thing. I don't know for certain, though, so I won't speculate on it. But they're not good enough to contend. But with this bunk-ass playoff system, they're good enough to make us the 4 seed and get their ass kicked every year.
It's the issue the Flyers had for a long time.
Yes.
Where it's like they're not bad enough to like do the rebuild they need to do, but they're not good enough to actually make a run in the playoffs. And they're not good enough. Like the Flyers was extra aggravating, so wouldn't get a good draft pick. So like, yeah, they're kind of in that middle ground. And I think what we're looking for is mid.
Yeah.
I think it's just what we're describing in so many words.
So we just got to tear it all down and start from scratch?
I don't know about all that. But I do think it's time for a serious reassessment of what you have and what the long term is. I think you can slap pieces together year by year, filling gaps, and keep a good team. However, I think great teams are built at least a year prior, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I can see. Like, honestly, we didn't talk about Ottawa all that much at the end of their season, although they did have another really solid season, 2 out of 3 years playoffs, and again, they pushed Quebec, and it's just kind of like deja vu with them. But they're a team that, year 1 was very much a surprise. They did what they did. Year 2, they were competitive, but kind of fell off. Year 3, they came up and they took a playoff spot in a hard-fought race. But the thing is, you can see they build and they have the foundation that they're working on, and just a matter of, okay, we got to plug and play the right pieces here. With Sioux City, I'd never quite know what they're going for, right? Like, all right, are we going to be a pitching team? No, not quite. There's not really enough here for that. They got a good bullpen, but like starters really aren't here, so you can't really bet on that. Okay, so maybe we're going to be pitching. No, there's not real, or maybe you're going to be batting. So there's not really power here, but the contact guys aren't here either. So like, what are we doing?
Oh, I think what you're picking up on is that's what happens when it's a team that you can't build an identity when you're only building with the pieces that are simply made available. Like if you're going to build something that identifies you as who you are as a team, you need to be able to pick and choose your pieces. And it always feels like Sioux City. I mean, I do think the JD example is a great one because it does feel like they're constantly on the back foot grabbing what's available. It's not a roster of vision. It's a roster of, or maybe it's better to say a roster of proactivity rather than it is a roster of reactivity. Reacting more to what is available than
it's not a roster design.
Getting what you want. Yes.
It's not a roster that's designed from the get-go to look like that. It's a roster of what you manage to salvage.
Right. That's why I think their offense is a lot of trouble because it's very rare to see them put together a full lineup of guys who are cohesive. I think you'll see them have a good number of days where like they'll get some offense going, but it never gets off the ground. I think that's a symptom of that.
Hmm.
Now, I will admit I don't have the stats to back it up in front of me. That is going off of me watching a lot of Sioux City games over the past couple months, but it just seems to be the trend I'm identifying. But
this isn't a stat show, Ryan. This is a vibe show.
It's a vibe show, and that's the vibe I'm getting. So I'm glad
get your witchcraft out of here.
Yeah, I'm the worst. I do hate myself.
Well, good. You can join the list, but I like all that they really have for the X's offense. Really feels like okay, it's Nagowski and what?
Yeah, it's a good read.
So, not overly stunning there. Then the second point I did want to mention is Chicago Cleburne. Man, Mike, it's Cleburne's year is aging very badly. I gotta say,
not your best.
Flip side though, my earlier season take of I just don't believe in them. They seem fraudulent. Man, did that hit home. So like we hedged very well.
Yeah. I mean, if does I just think of I'm playing both sides the way I always come out on top. I mean, I need to go back through it. I'm dreading it. My initial season projections. I'll probably do that once the last. Maybe I'll even do it next week because I don't think I projected like much about the playoffs. I just projected the regular season when it first started and see how that all went down.
Can I suggest for the YouTube thumbnail, you get a picture of a donkey and put your head on it?
Or a goat. We don't know.
Hey, do both.
Honestly, not bad thought. Yeah, Cleburne. I mean, we knew they were vulnerable. That was never a team I was super confident in. There was always they have a very powerful offense and at times strong pitching, but lining those two things up are it's a moving target. They're a team that lives with some power, which means there's inconsistency there, and they don't have the pitching staff to pick up a bad day offensively. And I think that just kind of got taken advantage of.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that is a product of where they play, right? Like, it's not like ballparks that rewards pitching all that much.
No, you're right.
And so if you're playing 50 games in a ballpark that's not going to help you in it, do you really say like, oh, well, we got to make sure this is good? Or do you just say like, make sure it's not going to kill us? I mean, like it's a conversation you have to have.
I mean,
only so many resources to go around.
Philosophically, I do believe you build your team to your ballpark. I think it gives you say that you're going to split to maybe take 45% of games you play on the road if you have at least a solid ball team. And if you can stretch it to 60% of your wins on the road, winning 60% of your games at home, you should be over 500, which should give you a playoff shot. And then it goes back to my eternal theory of it. Playoffs are a toss-up. So if it's just about making to the point where you're dancing, I do think you just play to the ballpark, and then you can worry about the finer details from there.
Yeah.
I know that you want more of hypothetically, I don't know, but like I actually have a very sorry for having a very boring pre-thought out thought process on that one because I'm unwell.
I don't blame. It's just like as far as Cleveland goes, I just thought that. Well, yeah, I didn't necessarily believe in them all the way. I did think they would be good enough to get past Chicago. I mean, when it comes to Chicago, like. The book on them is stop Teeter, stop Crook, and then you should be fine.
That's fair.
And like in fairness, they largely did. Teeter got 2 hits off of them.
Mm-hmm.
And it took until game 3
right?
to do anything.
Yeah.
And even then, the second hit was kind of like, we could really call this an error here.
But, I appreciate you for saying it.
Yeah. And then Crook had a good game too. Had 2 doubles, but outside of that, didn't do anything. Pair of offers and a walk. Okay, great. Got a walk. 2 walks, my mistake. Because what does he do, Ryan?
He gets on base.
There we go.
Say that much.
But yeah, like you stopped the 2 biggest threats in this lineup, and like you still didn't come through here. Like, what are we doing, boys?
Yeah, it does feel like they checked the boxes and still failed. Which sounds harsh, but
I mean, they did kind of choke away game 3 towards the end there, so like that doesn't help the cause.
Yeah, man. Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah, and it doesn't help with Hill Alexander's batting under 100. Actually, when you have 1, 2, 3. Oh, nearly half of your lineup sitting on the Mendoza line. Yeah, that's not good, and there's no power to go with it. What are we doing?
Yeah, it's now you're asking the questions.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, like, obviously, batting average guy here, but like
when it came down to it.
Yeah, 2 home runs out of this lab's not going to be good enough. I mean, like, realistically talking here, like Holland and Long are the only 2 where I can be like, yep.
Right.
Aldretti too. I'll give Aldretti something, but like, I mean, Boswell, I need to see more out of you. O'Grady, I really would like to see more out of you after the regular season you had. Lejano, okay-ish. Mendoza guy. Dillard, Grosjean, and Alexander. I mean, like, boys, hitting under 200, I don't really care. Like,
yeah, it's unacceptable.
Yeah, especially in a play. I get it. It's a 3-game series, so it's a crapshoot. But like,
but when you build a team where it is going to ride or die on that offense, it's like, well,
yeah, and it's not even like these are lower end guys. Like, these are 3 guys that were having good years.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's a tough one if you're there. The Pete Incaviglia postseason continues.
Oh, shoot, it follows them.
Yeah, although 2 bad starts doesn't help the cause either.
No.
That's going to hurt you, but we'll keep it moving, though. So that's how the first round played out. Round 2 just came to an end hours ago. King County swept Chicago, which feels right. Yep. And Winnipeg advances past Fargo 2-1.
Yeah, impressive showing from Winnipeg there. Obviously, like, we know about the pitching, but there's still a lot of questions there, and they, it took to tonight, but it was a fairly impressive showing against Fargo.
Edwin Arroyo Truthers stand up.
Yeah, Mitch Lamson.
Oh yes, Mitch Lamson.
11 Ks. Dang, game 3 showing up, getting it done.
Like, honestly, Winnipeg as a whole, as a team, they're batting .284. Pretty solid.
Yeah.
And keep in mind,
when you have that pitching, that will work.
And that's with Max Murphy batting under 100, by the way.
Yeah, crazy. I wonder. Well, I mean, now he's got 5 games to get it going, so that helps.
one of his 2 hits was a home run too, and he has 4 RBI. So like,
hey, count it.
they count all the same, boys. Armstrong also not really doing great, and like realistically looking at this, it's like Miles Symington had a good night tonight. Evan Alexander really just being able to flip the Red Hawk to Fargo here. Gets dropped off at the end of the season. Winnipeg just like, why not? And then gets to knock off his old team to go to the final. Go for him. Anytime in a good postseason too.
Yes, I have noticed that as well. And again, trying to not overreact to small sample stuff, but it's what we've got.
It's postseason, boys. If you're hot, you're hot. That's all that matters.
Down it. Still giving away MVP trophies for killing it in a series.
We're firmly in my territory, lads. The analytics boys will cry because it's that boy nice season.
That boy nice season.
Right. That matters way more than
that's what keeps Garrett Stubbs in a job, dude.
What I just heard is my vibes are feeding families.
Yeah, I think it's fair.
But yes, Edwin Arroyo is very much making his case for playoff MVP.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the series. More than I thought I would, honestly. I am just intrigued by this Winnipeg team. I don't know 100% why, full disclosure.
Because they were such a dominant pitching team, and then they were just so anemic on offense for so long, and now it almost feels like they've reversed. But when they need to, they still pitch well.
Right. Okay. Yeah. It's like that inconsistent offense has become somewhat consistent, but that consistent pitching has become a little inconsistent. I don't know. It's a mixed bag. I feel like they could throw a no-hitter tomorrow, and I also feel like they could embarrass themselves completely. And that's like every time they come out on the field. It's kind of weird.
Meanwhile, I'm just sitting here looking at all the pitchers that Kane County's used. Without looking, can you guess how many?
Kane County's used?
Yes.
Are we talking whole? What are we talking?
All postseason.
7 pitchers.
Spot on.
Yeah, dude. I've been watching.
You better be thanking Logan Neeson for his 1/3 of an inning.
Hey man, I knew it was about. I knew it was going to be in there because I also know that they have been. They basically did a full reset after the opening series, and then were able to run it straight back with basically the same arms plus a couple. So, yeah.
I really appreciate right now. I'm looking at this. They've thrown 36 total innings, of which 23 of them have been thrown by Stockton and Mall.
Yeah, that works. That'll play. Hey man, that's the playoffs. Let the boys eat. Big dog gotta eat.
Oh God, this it's kind of funny. It's almost like the roles are reversed, where Kane County's got an ERA of 1 in the postseason. Stupid, and they can't hit it all. And now Winnipeg's hitting really good, and their ERA is kind of like not bad, but like not Winnipeg.
Right.
Manager of the year, Logan Watkins, is going to have a hell of a match.
Going for the young guys, by the way.
Yeah. But here's the thing that gets me about this series. It's like Kane County's been kind of quiet all year. We've watched Winnipeg, and they've had their ups and their downs, but they're just so much better at this one aspect where they're going to be a problem. And if they can figure out how to hit, they're going to run this league. And then right when they figured out how to hit, they kind of forgot how to pitch a little bit. But they're getting it back a bit. So you have like the one team we've been talking about and looking at, and then Kane, where we just kind of been quietly like, there they are. Even when we were ranking them, it was kind of just like, I feel like I should rank them. They got pretty much the same record as some of these other teams are ranking, so they probably should be there. But at no point was I just like, yeah, they're a great. I wouldn't even call them great, but they're like a very solid ball club. I'm just like, yeah, they're good.
Yeah.
But now they're doing their job. They're winning postseason games, and they're beating up on the teams that you kind of want to see them beat up on.
Yeah, also, game to game, I don't it's interesting because I feel like I never know what to expect from Winnipeg, which feels disrespectful because they have been good so consistently. And I feel like every day we still show up like, well, let's see. It's like, damn, dude, what else they got to do?
Yeah. It's just like, yeah. See, and I will still go back to it. We got to go back to May on it, where it's just like, I really think that first like 6-game stretch of them versus Cleburne, really, at least for me, tainted my view on both of them, where it's just like, I can't fully trust either one of them, but I acknowledge these are the best two teams.
And it's more difficult because the doubts that put in our head about Cleburne came true. It was the same inconsistencies that got them. So it's like, well,
but you look at it logically and you're like, yeah, it was a 6-game set at the very beginning of the year when everyone's still figuring it out. And
yet, here we are.
Exactly. But it will be a fun series, though. We got game 1 on Saturday, so day this comes out. Mm-hmm. So then I guess be Saturday, Sunday, off day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
That sounds right off the top of my head. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I think, yeah, you're right. Okay.
Man, Winnipeg got screwed on their home dates.
Yeah, a little bit, but I mean, isn't that a home field advantage thing?
It is. I guess they could technically forfeit that. They want the 2 weekend dates, but they're in it to win it.
Oh, yeah.
Plus, you want to win it at home. Then again, oh, God, imagine you lose it at home and you got shitty dates. The ultimate loss.
I've seen that before. I've seen the Blue Rocks actually get the same situation. The bad dates and they actually get murked in front of their home crowd. Like, all right. Well, that was fun. Have a good evening. Enjoy your offices, everybody.
It's like, all right, we're all going home now. We don't want to watch this shit.
Well, that's the end of that.
So, do we want to go to the Pioneer League now, or do we have anything else on the American Association?
The Pioneer League, and then I'm just going to tell you I don't have.
Awesome. So, Pioneer League. So, let's start with the Pioneer League. We have one series in the back.
One series. No, we don't. No, we're 0 for 2 on that. Because Oakland and YOLO is going to game 3, and Glacier rained out tonight with Missoula.
Wasn't it? Oh, wait, it wasn't game 3 tonight.
Yeah.
I was thinking this was game 3.
Yeah, Missoula's up 1-0, but they're going to do, I guess, Friday, Saturday instead now. Yeah, screwed. Thanks for nothing.
Here I was, really thinking that YOLO season ended tonight.
It's a nightmare. Oh no, YOLO's season is still alive for sure, but it'll be interesting. Talk about it sounded like Oakland put out a lot of the big dogs, but they got time now. I think they have a night off in between, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, well, at least we don't have any series ending before this comes out.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's cool. Hey, let's go.
So, Oakland YOLO have split. The California series is definitely the most interesting. Whether it's a forced rivalry or not, it's still a rivalry that is there. They feel pretty evenly matched. They're probably the 2 hottest teams ending off the year, which does mean something when you get into this. Curious to see how this one, I guess, sorts itself out. Either way, I almost feel more curious about what the final looks like than how these individual series play out.
Yeah. I'm not overly interested because I don't know. It feels bad, but there's not. How do I say it? The individual teams themselves haven't found it overly compelling. This is not the best version of Missoula we've seen. Glacier has been, straight up hard to watch over the past few weeks. And then we have Oakland and YOLO, which is just a series we've seen. Now it hasn't been a good, close back and forth series, but like not with a ton of spice. And it's kind of been, I don't know, something we've seen before. It was a good game tonight I was watching, but yeah, it's not overly.
I mean, we've seen it like 60 times this year.
Yeah, which is an additional conversation for another time.
Which I guess if you're a fan of either one of the teams, it's like, oh,
cool,
okay,
but
a winner
still.
take all grudge match. But it's like, I don't really feel that way.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
I agree with you with the whole Montana matchup too. It's like I want to be more interested and invested in it.
I do. I'm excited about that angle too of that, but it's just Glacier's just been like, I know
neither one of these teams are at their best here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just like, what are we putting the energy into? It's not that I'm not at all sort of excited about it, but it is that, I'm just wondering, what are we going to learn here? Really, I'm at a point with either of these teams where I'm going to be like, oh wow, that was completely mind blowing to me.
So you're in your burn after reading phase right now. Where what did we learn?
I figured out how to phrase it. It is either going to be the expected result or a result that makes you go, wow, like, okay, playoff baseball is kind of a coin flip. That's in Montana, at least. I'm struggling to fight off my biases with the Oakland series, but I think I'm successfully-ish doing it. Curious to see how things react. And that's all I can really say on that one. Without fully incriminating myself to the point where they will never hire me ever in some of these leagues, but you know what I'm looking at. Users, you know what I'm looking at. Just useless.
I can't wait to see how this is framed in the documentary.
Doubters, haters, hating.
They were against Oakland.
They were anti-Oakland.
I don't really have too much else to add on the Pioneer League. It's really
I don't either. I'm more just playing the waiting game for the finals here a little bit.
Yeah, I'm very curious about how that final plays out, though.
Yeah, man, you and me both on that one.
We will see. So, Atlantic League, again, this will be 30 seconds. Charleston's going to be in. Lancaster's going to be in. High Point disappointing. Long Island, good fight. Didn't show up in the first half and didn't really show up for like the first 2 weeks of the second half. So that's tough for you boys.
Right.
Everybody else, you weren't ever even a factor in this. So bye.
Yeah, it was a pretty uninspired playoff chase. I hate to say it.
Yeah.
But I think I am excited about the playoff series that we're looking at. York and Lancaster is really fun. What is it, since 2012 since they played in a playoff series? That's cool. It'll be a lot of fun because I'll be able to get to just about every game in that series. And then probably in the championship, it's either I'll be at, I would say, at least 2 of the games, likely 3, potentially all 5. I know if Gaston said that I'm going to try to commit to actually getting there, but we'll see. I have a bunch of scheduling conflicts, but I think I can navigate them.
The thing is, personally,
I'll be fine.
I like how you just pull your schedule up on camera.
Yeah, fine. We'll be fine.
I just want to point out here, like, as much as I'd like to see Gastoni go on, because I think they've earned this a little bit more, I think we could have a low-key dynasty kind of thing going on. I also want to see the rematch between them and Lancaster a lot. For me personally, for my personal entertainment, I don't really care who wins the Pennsylvania series, but I'd like to see Charleston get in there just so you get to a game of Charleston.
I don't think I'll be going to Charleston. I'm not confident that I'll be allowed into that ballpark, and I don't want to go all the way out of my way to Charleston to not go.
There was a Bobby Valentine
I walked in with someone else. It's a toss-up with RB in Charleston. I know for a fact that I will be at other locations, and if Charleston is there, I do hope ownership plans to attend.
That's good. I imagine they'd have to be there to support their team.
You would think.
Especially in the possible swan song in the Atlantic League.
Unless somebody is anxious about something. I can't imagine it being the case. Now, hypothetically, of course, and whether this is there or not, it doesn't matter in the end edit. But of course, it is not becoming of somebody to blindside somebody else. However, if you've already been blindsided by somebody, I think it's okay. So it's, we have a lot of fun potential for a series with Charleston.
Absolutely. And I'm
You
sure.
can tell I've been counting down for this for like 2.5 years, and I'm just like fully signed off on going to jail.
Well, as long as you announce your plans on Facebook first, it'll be fine. Then enough people will have known.
They'll buy tickets.
Exactly. There's the Atlantic League talk. We haven't really mentioned them at all in the month of September and barely in the month of August, but hey, we'll talk about them next week when there's actual playoff baseball happening in that league.
Yeah, they'll get their love for sure because they'll be the last one operating. So, of course, they will.
So they get their time. But
yeah,
everyone knows April and May are Atlantic League or Atlantic months. The end of September and October are their months, dude. They get those months. Everything in between, it's a crapshoot. So that's going to do it for us this week. A solid, I think an overall solid episode. Not too much of them. Well, it was solid until you start doing that weird shit. Settle down there, JD.
Will it do it for us this week? I think I have a topic.
Oh.
Yeah, I have a big announcement.
Rey Mysterio music coming on now.
And we can discuss this further on another episode, but I think it's worth discussing.
Oh, the secret thing that you said, but I can't tell you what it is. Okay.
Here's what it is. Here's the good news. Well, we have stressed a lot throughout this episode about different leagues. The good news for everybody is I fixed Indie Ball. I fixed the whole thing, so it's all good now. It's all done. We're cool. We're good. The drama is gone. I did the whole thing. I fixed the thing. I did all of it.
Hey, Charlie.
And here's how I did it. I made the plan, so everyone just has to get on board, which of course they will. Why would they not? It's easy.
I mean, you're a friend to everybody, so like, why not?
Right. And we've talked since the beginning, it would really help out a lot of organizations and teams if we could combine indie leagues in some way, potentially the relegation promotion system, and to figure it out. And it will require a little more travel, yes, but it will be a shared budget situation, and we will be able to work together, and it'll be a collective bargaining between the organizations, and it'll be great. So the big news is congratulations, first and foremost, to what I will be calling the Premier League of Indie Ball to start, this is based on performance and also off-field performance. Is the organization healthy? Is it not? We'll see. The Western expansion, which is the part that's going to cause travel, but hey, it's the top league, so it's okay. You'll be making some money, is Missoula and Fargo. And then they've got Schaumburg, King County, Chicago with it, which is a different conversation, but I'm going to give them a chance to screw everything up. Gastonia and High Point, which Gastonia is iffy, but they perform well enough on field to be there. And then you got Washington, you got York, you got Lancaster, you got Long Island, you've got Quebec. Is that not a great 12-team league? And you might be like, well, how do you do that? Because they all have different roster rules. No, because if we're breaking them into 4 leagues by like level, the top league would basically adopt the Atlantic League rules. The next league down would basically adopt the roster rules to the American, then the Frontier, and the Pioneer. So you still have the structuring. If your team gets relegated and you lose your guys because your team no longer can support that many people of his age, well, then that's fine. He probably wants to go to the other league anyway, so it's fine. It all would actually work out pretty well.
So I want to know, when you started thinking about this,
was it at work? Yes. Oh, yeah, I was, but I was at work, so bored.
So then there was a decent chance you had it's always sunny type chalkboard behind you, right?
Yeah, this is like the 4th map I was working on. Yeah, for sure.
Wait, there's an actual map attached to this?
Oh, big dog. Yeah. Well, I mean, you need plausible travel. Yeah, for sure.
You print off a map?
I mean, I just have maps in general because of my work, but yeah, I literally have a stack of blank maps depending on what we're working on.
I feel like sometimes the difference between you and like a second grader isn't as far apart as I'd like to think it is.
Oh, I think it's closer than any of us could possibly imagine. For sure, actually, no doubt in my mind. Let me see here.
They're kind of just like stunned back by the idea. Like,
it'd be fun. It'd be perfect. And again, look, the travel is more, but the top league is the only one that would only really have one division. So there'd be a lot of travel. Everything else would be split into divisions. Down to like, and the further you go down, where you just assume there's less revenue being generated and you're trying to promote them saving money, it's less expensive roster, less expensive travel, they'd be playing more in their divisional pots.
And how would promotion work for these lesser leagues? They're multi-divisions?
I think it probably best record or top or a playoff system. You can kind of depend on, and all of this would also be working on like flexible divisions, because if you promote an extra East Coast team, you would just have to have the flexibility to be like, hey, we got more East Division teams this year than West, because that's the way it goes. That's fine. It would basically be playing a pretty even schedule though, like among the divisions, just to make it work. And the further you go down, the less the schedule would necessarily, be forced to matter. Like top league, you're playing everyone an equal number of times, in my opinion, but that's just me.
More than just the concept of a plan.
Yeah, Well, because that top league, I mean, you could be playing nearly 120 games if you really want to. Do some basic math.
Alrighty.
It's gonna be beautiful. It's gonna be beautiful, David.
Ryan's a very stable genius, folks.
I'm going to start it like it's a religion, my guy. It's going to be a nightmare. I'll probably drop this whole thing on my YouTube channel. It was just slowly going to devolve into just the ravings of somebody who is so disconnected from reality. It is like hard to watch, but you can't stop. And that is how I'll get my views.
So what Ryan just said is he's about to become the indie ball version of the Unabomber.
It's like how those beheading videos always have a lot of views.
Yeah, the FBI wasn't watching before, they are now. So at least we got some Quantico views. That's lovely to see.
At least someone's listening.
Yeah. So now are we done?
Sure, for now.
All right. We'll talk more about this Premier League. We'll talk more about the playoffs. We'll talk more about the expansion. We'll talk more about Ryan Stark raving madness in the future, because we are like 3 weeks away from the off season. That cold, dark abyss.
And also because I do want to know if you would agree with my like Premier League choices. So we'll have to discuss.
Yes. But on that note, unlike the Lake Erie Crushers season, this show will not end to the chicken dance. Which, by the way, imagine being in that dugout. You're getting ass blasted, 10-0. It's the 8th inning, and you're how to listen to the chicken dance.
That sucks, dude. That's so bad.
Whole ballpark doing the thing, because it's a Saturday, so it's packed out. About like 4,000 people in there.
It's a tragedy.
And you're just like, we played 100 games.
I'm not going to sit here and call for jobs, but like whoever made that choice, good Lord.
Well, to be fair, they do a fried chicken giveaway during that bit.
Buddy, I said what I said. You gotta read the room a little bit on that one.
At the very least. Cleveland waited until people started leaving the ballpark before they started playing something in the orange. Which is another tough one.
Yeah, it's a tough one as well. A little more vibey, but yeah, not great.
It still gives you some big, like, walk into the middle lane on a 10-lane intersection.
Play a little Pink Skies.
At least that's got some sort of, like, hopefulness in there.
Sure. I mean, that's literally the concept of something in the orange. I feel you, but sure.
Yeah, but it doesn't come across much. The melody isn't as much there.
I get you.
We do music reviews now.
The matching Zach Bryan songs to baseball situations. It's a vibe.
That's an off-season video.
Yeah. Honestly, yes, it is.
Write it down. Write it down.
Which Zach Bryan's song is Your Terrible Indie Ball Team.
Would you ever figure out that BuzzFeed quiz thing for which?
Yeah, I'm pretty close to having that thing wrapped up now. Yeah, it looks good. So I'm excited.
Where can they find updates on that kind of thing?
Any Nation on whatever. I'm kind of changing the vibe as always, which I always am changing the vibe on it, but I think we'll see. Just follow. Whatever. We'll figure it out. Any Nation on whatever the hell.
Man, we planned so well. And Default Pod on Twitter and Default for reals. And so until next time, don't forget to play ball.